Welcome back, guys. This is The Wild Chase, the only outdoor channel where you can get all your up-to-date hunting, fishing, and outdoor news. It's getting harder and harder to find news that doesn't involve COVID-19, but I think we managed to squeak by one more week. Hope you guys enjoy. Alright, for the first news story, it's a bit of a hot-button topic for me. It seems like every time that you give your private information to a company, be it Facebook, YouTube, whatever, it seems like somehow that information becomes leaked due to hacking or backdoor flaws within a company's security system. And it seems like there's no way to keep your private information safe nowadays. Ideally, you should be able to trust the state with your private information and from disclosing that information to private individuals. But I just received an email earlier this week from New Mexico saying that the state court has ruled in favor of a private citizen that he is allowed to receive all hunters' data from anybody who applied or drew a tag from 2015 to 2019. Now, this personally affects me and a bunch of hunters out there. And I usually try to stay fairly bipartisan in a lot of these issues that I talk about in the news, but this one I really feel oversteps a lot of boundaries. I know that I specifically check whenever I apply for tags, even in New Mexico, to not be contacted by outfitters or guides, or to not have my information publicly disclosed. And it seems kind of a slap in the face that this information is now being court mandated to be released to a private citizen in regards to a lawsuit, albeit, but still released to a private citizen. Now, you can complain about it on a hotline that you're being solicited or receiving harassment calls, but the information, once the information's out, there's nothing you can do about it. All you can do is complain about it, and that's really the issue here. If you can see on the document itself, Game and Wildlife Commission tried to fight against this, so I'm not saying that it's their fault, but I do think that the state court that approved this clearly does not understand what's at stake here. This isn't just public information. That's what they're deeming it as, is public information, that public records. No, it's not public records. When you apply for a tag at the DMV and I put my social security down, I don't expect that information to be released to somebody if they want to sue the DMV. I don't care what their excuse is. It's my information. So this first news story, again, big hot button topic for me. Let me know if you guys have any opinion on that. All right. As much as I love bringing you guys news of a new state record, a world record animal or fish that's been caught somewhere, it can't always be good news. And I'm starting to realize that more and more as I do this channel, that there's a lot of bad news even in the hunting and fishing community and outdoor community as a whole than there is necessarily always good news. I try to find at least one good news story every week for you guys, but it's becoming a little bit more difficult in recent times. Perfect example of this, a guy named Greg Ritz. You might have seen him from Hunt Masters TV show. We've all seen it where on these hunting shows or these YouTube channels where these guys go out on public land or on a buddy's property and they just see this trophy class elk, deer, boar, sheep, so be it. And you're just like, man, wow, this guy must just be so lucky. Turns out later down the road sometimes that guy was either hunting illegally or that he was really hunting high fence on a property and that it was tagged earlier and that the tag was removed just for the TV show. And you don't really ever get a good close-up of that side of the animal. You only ever see it from one side versus the other. It's becoming less and less prevalent, but unfortunately it's just a reality of the world we live in, and a lot of guys feel like when they get to that level, they have to perform every single time. They can't just turn down a spike buck. They have to come home with some kind of trophy. And it's kind of sad that sometimes we in the hunting community or fishing community get so wrapped up in the trophy or the prize that we can't just realize that what it's really about is teaching the next generation, or just going out in the woods either with your friends for camaraderie or by yourself just to relax really in nature. That's really what it's all about. It's not always about killing and a trophy. Again, try not to give you guys all bad news, but yeah, Hunt Masters, Greg Ritz, he's being charged with hunting over bait yeah, I don't know how it's going to pan out for him. I'm sure he can recover. I mean, the guy's obviously a good hunter, but sometimes it's better to just admit that you had a bad day than it is to bend the rules or alter reality to fit the narrative that you want to tell. It's just the nature of the game. All right, speaking of high fence hunting, a Minnesota guide slash deer farmer is being put on trial on March 23rd for defying a statewide quarantine of the most important disease to most hunters. And surprisingly enough, no, it's not COVID-19, it's chronic wasting disease. For those of you who don't know, chronic wasting disease is it's a very contagious disease, a pandemic, if you will, amongst COVID species that causes them to slowly deteriorate. It's very contagious and it's very controlled by most DNRs. Most DNRs require that you have your meat tested before you are allowed to transport it. There's strict laws on moving animals across state lines. Well, this farmer or guide, his business is actually called Steve Porter's Trophy Whitetail. You can look him up if you want to go hunting with him. He's got some amazing whitetail on his farm. But the way he ran his business was he would transport these deer to schools or outdoor events and show them off, obviously for business purposes. What he did that's getting him in trouble with the law is that there was a doe that tested positive for CWD roughly 250 miles from his farm, and there was a statewide quarantine put down back in January. He asked DNR if he could go around the quarantine, and because he was far enough away, he thought. They denied him, and he still went to events anyways, and he was detained on the spot and charged initially with a misdemeanor, but is now going on trial for it. To give you both sides of the story, he's claiming that DNR has no right to tell him what to do with the animals on his farm. As far as I know, he didn't cross any state lines, so he wasn't introducing it into a new state, and he's doing this to promote his business, and he's claiming that by not allowing him to do this, that they're causing him a loss of business. And I usually tend to favor private business over state government, but in the state government's defense, CWD is a major problem within the deer hunting community, and steps do need to be made to make sure that some hunter who's not trying to just profit off some deer that he raised in his backyard isn't going to just be spreading this disease just so he can make a quick buck. So I understand where they're coming from. Again, I really have no opinion on this story, but I think it's interesting that we're starting to see more and more within the hunting community, private individuals going up against DNR so heavily, it seems, in the last few years. I swear, every week there's a new story about wolves. I don't know what it is, but there's just always something going on about wolves. Wolves are like the hot buzzword when it comes to Western hunting right now. Anyways, Idaho Department of Game and Fish has just announced killed 14 wolves in the Lolo region of Idaho over the previous month. They've been doing this since 2011 due to the dwindling number of elk within their herds. If you remember back to last week, Utah denied that they would allow any wolves to be released in their state, and this is again a big hot topic for people who are pro-wolf because they want to connect the wolf populations coming out of Mexico all the way up to the border with Canada. A lot of pro-wolf people are saying, wolves are great for the environment. I won't go into that story again, but I think it's cases like this where we should look at the states that are already having problems with wolves and see what they're doing that's working, what they're doing that's not working, see if killing wolves helps anything, or see if it doesn't make a difference. I think that's where the real meat of the matter is, and I think that people should consider stories like this, and really we need to do a little bit more diligence on gathering data before we decide to allow wolves into these states. I know Colorado is pretty gung-ho on it right now. I'm going to be living there in about a year, so we'll see how that turns out. I'm pretty stoked about it that the year I finally moved to Colorado, that I can do elk hunting every year, they're going to be releasing wolves or allowing wolves to start crossing state lines into Colorado. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. All right, guys, that's pretty much going to wrap up the news. Before we go, like always, I'm going to give you guys the upcoming draw deadlines by state and let you know what species you should be applying for. Again, if you applied for any turkey tags, those should be up about right now. It's a little bit dependent on state, but most states have released their drawn turkey hunts by now, so go ahead and check if you applied for one of those. Next week, March 25th, will be the North Dakota deadline for bighorn, elk, and moose. So make sure that you apply by at least March 25th to at least get your points in there. Next will be on March 31st, will be Wyoming. That's only for bison. Those are the only two states that I'm aware of that have a actual open application right now. If you're aware of any others, go ahead and leave it down in the comments section. Again, my name is Chase, and I'm part of a group called 3 Dudes Outdoors. You can check us out on Facebook. I'll put a link in the description. And if you would like to continue receiving news like this about fishing, hunting, and outdoors, then please go ahead and give us a subscribe. Thank you. Have a good day.